Well, we are now almost like gods. In terms of our powers of creation and destruction, we now have the power to create new life forms, but also to destroy much of life on Earth, including ourselves.
So this gentleman's name is Yuval Noah Harari. Right off the bat, I don't have the slightest clue what this man is talking about, because human beings can't even create a grain of rice, let alone new forms of life. We don't have the ability to create new material, only change the state of existing material from liquid to gas and solid to liquid, etc. We don't even have cures or treatments for God knows how many illnesses to save people who are dying now, but this guy claims we can create new forms of life. Now, this isn't to be confused with reproduction, which is a natural biological function. That comes as a result of procreation. We're talking about his idea of actually creating new forms of life from scratch. We don't have that ability.
Evolution of life on Earth took something like 4 billion years. 4 billion years to reach these plants and to reach us, human beings.
So Mr. Harari speaks of evolution often, and I find it curious that until this day, scientists can't even agree on how evolution started or even transpired. But there's no archaeological evidence that human beings evolved from primates, or any species for that matter. Yet somehow, archaeologists are able to regularly find the remains of dinosaurs that existed tens and even hundreds of millions of years ago before these supposed species that humans evolved from.
Gutenberg printed the Bible in the middle of the 15th century. The printing press printed as many copies of the Bible as Gutenberg instructed it, but it did not create a single new page. It had no ideas of its own about the Bible. Is it good? Is it bad? How to interpret this? How to interpret that? AI can create new ideas, can even write a new Bible. Throughout history, religions dreamt about having a book written by a superhuman intelligence. In a few years, there might be religions that are actually correct.
Now, I honestly don't understand this man's direction, guys. I really don't. He goes from speaking about evolution to utilizing artificial intelligence to rewrite not only a new Bible, but writing what he calls a correct Bible. Before continuing, you all should know a few things about this man. He is a Jewish man from Israel who just so happens to be homosexual. So it should be no surprise to anyone that he consistently speaks of the Bible as if it is fantasy. His drive to rewrite and undermine the Bible no doubt comes from his displeasure with the fact that scriptures like Leviticus 20:13 exist.
If we could just let go of these stories for a little while, and again go back to the level of the body, we would realize that we are all the same. All of us share the same biology, irrespective of our ideology and religion and whatever. And if we remember that, and let go a little of our ideological and religious fantasies, that's the basis to create a better world for everybody.
Did you guys catch that? If not, let me break it down real quick. When he says let go of fantasy, he's talking about the Bible. In his mind, because he believes that Christianity drifted away from its original ideals long ago, it would be better for the entire world if we could just remove it from our culture so that the world could supposedly be a better place for everyone. But what he's really trying to say is that if people would just forget about the Bible, homosexuality could spread like wildfire to every corner of the world. And that would include the consumption of your children as well. At the end of the day, he's attempting to disguise his true intention through a series of pedantic statements.
As you mentioned, I met my husband online more than 20 years ago, growing up in a small town in Israel, which was very homophobic society at the time. Just meeting other people, just meeting guys for dating was very difficult.
And there's the crux of it, people. He grew up in Israel, struggling with the sin of homosexuality, but what I find even more curious is how much he hates the Bible. Not because it doesn't make sense, but because he didn't make any mention of the Torah or the Quran. Now, both of those books condemn homosexual activity, and we know this in Christianity just by looking at the Old Testament. But why does he only attack the Bible? Because whether he knows it or not, it's the only scripture that reflects the only true faith in the world, that is Christianity. He went through a life of homophobia, which set him on this course of Bible hatred. So in turn, he believes that he can use his intellect, or what the Bible calls the fleshly puffed up mind, to attack scripture because it interferes with his sexual desires. He's attempting to do what Christopher Hitchens failed to do his entire life, which was to disprove God and the Bible. Mr. Harari wants there to be a reality where artificial intelligence actually rewrites the Bible as it stands, so that we can get what he estimates would be a correct version of the Bible. But when I asked an artificial intelligence app on my phone how to write a proper Bible, this is what it said. Number 1, you would have to remove exclusive language. Number 2, you would have to emphasize universal value. Number 3, you would have to incorporate teachings from other religious texts. Number 4, you would have to avoid specific doctrinal statements. And number 5, you would have to acknowledge multiple paths to heaven, which would mean that Jesus Christ isn't the only way to God the Father, which, as we all know, is a complete and utter lie. When it comes down to it, brothers and sisters, Mr. Harari's contempt for the Bible is obvious, and so is the reasoning. It isn't as though he's trying that hard to hide it. He makes these pseudo-intellectual attempts to categorize the Bible as the fantasies of previous prophets and philosophers, but makes it known that he feels this way because it limits us from exploring the physical realm in the way that he wants to. He didn't hesitate to segue into his troubles to find other homosexual males, and therefore, he decided that because the Bible is clear about homosexual behavior, it must be incorrect. But here's the thing, no amount of intellect in the world can refute the scriptures or its history. It's men like this that the Bible warns against. Be extremely careful who you become enamored with, guys, because it can easily keep you on the broad road to spiritual destruction. As always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. If you want to become a channel supporter, you can always stop by my Patreon page or pop into my Buy Me a Coffee page as well. Thank you especially to my supporters on both platforms. Always remember, guys, that tomorrow is not promised to anyone. Be safe, be good, be blessed, and most importantly of all, Jesus is King and the only way to heaven. Later, guys.